On average, they say that every additional point that you score on the LSAT can make a difference in your scholarship offer of somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000, guys. Every single point. $5,000 to $10,000. Every single point. So don't be like me. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Tasha, and I'm a non-traditional student and a mom applying to law school. For those of you who already know me, welcome back. Today's video is going to be all about why timing really does matter when you're applying to law school. So I took my LSAT twice, in August and October. And as I mentioned to you guys in my last video where I discussed my LSAT study schedule, I'll go ahead and pop that link somewhere up here. But I had originally planned to take my LSAT in November. So I thought I'd have maybe about 6 months or so to study. But I did a lot of research and I realized that applying later in the cycle wasn't going to be the best option for me. And so instead, I opted to take those two tests late summer, early fall. Now with the LSAT Flex, which is basically just the digital online version of the LSAT, you actually get your scores about 3 weeks after you take the test. So for August, I took the test that first week and I got my score back the third week. Same thing in October. I took my test that very first week of the month and I got my score back that third week. Now again, as I mentioned in my last video, guys, I thought I was going to kill it on my August LSAT and I didn't quite do that, but I still had high hopes for October. And so because I thought I was going to do so well, I didn't register for the following LSAT, which was in November. When I got my score back from my October test, I want to say I got it back on the 23rd, and I realized that I didn't score quite as high as I wanted to. It was too late for me to register to take the November LSAT. And so that kind of put me in a little bit of a jam. So instead, I had to make the choice as to whether I would go ahead and apply now with my score as is at the end of October, whether I would register for the very next LSAT, which is going to be January, again because I had missed the November deadline, or if I was going to wait until the following cycle completely and give myself a better opportunity to zhuzh up my resume, my experience, and get a much better LSAT score. Decisions like this are exactly why understanding the admission cycle is so important, so that you can figure out what works best for you. Really quickly, before I jump into the admission cycle, I'm going to go over just like 2 terms that you'll probably hear me use, just so you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So one number that you'll probably hear used pretty frequently is median. And all that means is average. I know I'm taking you way back to high school, guys, but basically in terms of law school, all that means is the law school's average numbers. So every school has an average LSAT score and an average GPA for all of the students that they admit into their school. So if you look, you'll see for every school, they might have something listed where they say 75th percentile, 50th percentile, and 25th percentile. The 75th percentile just means higher than 75% of the class. So they're that top 25%, they're top tier. And in terms of LSAT, that just means that they tend to have a higher score. The 25th percentile is the exact opposite. So they're the bottom 25% of the class. That means less than 75% of the class. The 50th percentile, they're just the average students right there smack dab in the middle. So to give you guys a graphic representation, I like to picture it something like this. So in this example, you'll see that the 75th percentile has an LSAT score of 166. That means that the top 25% of the class for that law school is going to have an LSAT score of 166 or higher. Same thing on the other end, you're going to see the 25th percentile is 160. So that means that the bottom 25% of the students admitted to that school have an LSAT score of 160 or lower. The average student in the class is going to have an LSAT around 163. And it works the exact same way for GPA, guys. So in this example, the 75th percentile of the class, which just means, again, that top 25%, they scored higher than the other 75% of the class. They have a GPA of 3.65 or higher. On the opposite end, the 25th percentile, they have a GPA of 3.27 or lower. Right in the middle, we've got our students with an average GPA of 3.45. The 50th percentile of that class. So we refer to those scores as the school's medians. Higher ranking law schools tend to have much higher median. Lower ranking law schools tend to have much lower medians. And this is really important because law schools are ranked on US News and World Report based on a number of factors, and the LSAT and GPA numbers are a huge determining factor in where those schools are ranked. And so when it comes to admissions, those schools play a really significant part in whether you're going to be accepted, waitlisted, denied, or offered scholarship money. Another term that you'll probably hear used somewhat often is splitter. All a splitter is someone who has either a really high LSAT score and a lower GPA, or vice versa. You have maybe a lower LSAT score but a really high GPA. So this is an example of what that might look like. And again, depending on the school that you're interested in going to, you'll be able to look up exactly what their average numbers are so that you can figure out your chances of getting into that school, getting scholarship money, and whether the admission cycle is going to affect your acceptance into the school. I myself was a splitter, and so I definitely know that that does play a factor, but do not think for 1 minute that that is going to stop you from getting into law school. So on to the admission cycle. So most law schools will open up their applications at the beginning of September for you to begin applying. Some of them do later September, early October, but the majority of them will open up those applications at the beginning of September. Most law schools are going to make decisions on a rolling basis. All that means is that as the application comes in, they're going to look at it, they're going to say you are accepted, you are waitlisted, or you are denied. They're going to go ahead, put that aside, and move on to the very next person. And this has a huge impact on why your timing matters. In fact, this is one of the biggest reasons why applying to law school early is going to be your biggest advantage. Use an example, let's say a school has 150 seats to fill. They don't want to accept too many students with really low GPAs or really low LSATs because that's going to affect their median number. Remember, they're ranked based on their numbers, and so they don't want to go lower than what they already are. Of course, they'll accept a bunch of students above. If they could go up in rankings, it would be phenomenal. But the fact that schools need to maintain their median numbers means that they're going to be really particular about accepting students with lower LSATs or lower GPAs. But let's say you're applying early and the school has all 150 seats open. More often than not, they would be willing to accept students with slightly lower numbers. Why is that? It's because after they accept those students, they could figure out where they're at and they could accept higher ranking students with higher LSATs or higher GPAs to make sure that they get their numbers right to where they need them to be. They still have a lot of wiggle room to work with, and that wiggle room is beneficial to you. Now let's say you're applying later on in the cycle and maybe the school only has 50 seats left to fill. They're going to be much pickier as to who they're accepting into their school. It gets really tricky for them because a lot of times what law schools will do is they'll send out much more acceptances than they're expecting for students to matriculate. Why is that? Let's say the school, this example I'm using in particular, let's say they send out 250 acceptances. They might be expecting at least 100 of those students to either choose to go to another school, decide that maybe the timing isn't right, they're not going to go to law school right now, maybe they'll defer for a year, whatever the situation might be. So the school is doing a balancing act, trying to get the best crop of students that they can. As they get closer to the deadline, as they get closer to that next cycle, they're going to be much pickier about who they're letting into the school. So you want to apply early when they have space to fill. Another reason that applying early is really important, guys, scholarship money. At the start of the cycle, they might have $100 million to give out in scholarship money. They're going to be having students apply and they're going to be giving it out like crazy. But remember what I said about them giving out more acceptances than they expected for students to matriculate? Well, let's say they offer 100 students scholarship money, a full ride to all of them, okay? And they only have 50 seats left to fill. They don't really have that much money left to work with. So maybe they can offer the rest of the 50 students a full ride. Maybe only a half ride. Maybe some of them get a little bit more, some of them get a little bit less. It's the same thing as if I said, here's $1,000, go grocery shopping. You would buy whatever it is that you wanted. Cheetos, got it. Oreos, got it. Toilet paper, let's stock up, because you'd have the money to blow. But if you only had $100 or $200 left, you're not gonna go crazy and grab all these random things. You're gonna grab the necessities. You're gonna grab the things that are most important to you, and you're gonna try to make that money stretch. That's the same way with law schools. At the beginning of the cycle, they have money to blow. You got a full ride, you got a half scholarship, you got a stipend. But towards the end of it, when they only have a few seats left and they only have a little bit of money left, they have to be much more particular about who they give that money to. And again, about those students that they sent that scholarship money to, if those students applied earlier on in the cycle and they got offered a scholarship, most schools will require you to give them an answer as to whether you're going to be going to that school or not by the deposit deadline of April. Some of them are April 1st, April 15th, but across the board, the majority of them have a deadline of April. So let's say you apply to a school in early fall and you get your decision by the beginning of November. You don't have to give that school a final concrete yes or no that I'm going to your school until April. That's 5 months away. So another student that might be applying in December, maybe they get their answer in February, but they don't get a full ride. They don't get a scholarship because that money is already tied up with a student that the school already offered it to. So now in April, if that student decides, oh, well, no, I'm not going to go to your school, I'm going to go to another school because, maybe they're higher ranked or they offered me a stipend or whatever the case may be. Now the school has that money in their pocket again. Are they just going to call that December student and say, hey, here's some money? No. Now that student has to contact the law school in April and ask them if they would consider looking at their scholarship offer again. It puts a lot more strain on you and it lessens your chance of getting money. One of the reasons that you might not get everything that they had offered to that student, let's just say they had offered that original student $50,000 full tuition for the year. Now that second student who applied in December is contacting the school in April and saying, hey, would you consider looking at my scholarship offer again? Of course, the school would be willing to, but now they have a free seat from that first student that decided to decline. They're going to offer that seat to another student. So maybe they're not going to give that other student the $50,000. Maybe they're going to split it. They'll give you $25,000 and they'll give that other student $25,000. Again, the school has much less money to work with. So applying early is a huge, huge advantage, guys. I can't stress that enough. You don't want to be applying when the school is almost out of money. Another reason that applying to law school earlier in the admission cycle is important is because of planning. Now, you guys know that I'm a mom, and so planning was really important to me because I had to figure out not only my schedule, but maybe childcare, backup childcare just in case. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I still have no idea if my son will actually be in school next year. I'm hoping so. But again, there's so many factors that are up in the air that I needed more time to plan. So in terms of applying to law schools, which I am going to do a whole video on, but I made the choice to apply to 12 law schools that were all within 2 hours of me. I needed options and location still mattered. Not all of you guys are tied down geographically. Again, I will do a whole video on how you choose the law schools to apply to and what factors to really take into consideration. But my general advice for you guys is if you can, apply broadly. Give yourself options. I'd rather have way too many offers and I have to narrow down and pick one than to only apply to a few schools and I maybe don't get the offer I was looking for. I didn't get a full ride. And then, I'm just trying to pick between two semi-decent options. So, okay, let me tell you why planning matters. Let's say you apply to 20 schools. Let's say they're the 20 top schools. Most of us would kill to go to those schools, right? Those schools are spread across the nation, multiple states. Do Do you really want to be submitting an application in December for you to maybe not get an answer until, I don't know, March, April? And then you're scrambling to pack, trying to figure out how to sell your apartment, get a new one, all with, what, just 3 months to go before school starts? So I applied to all of my law schools before the end of October. So I had all of my applications in before Halloween. Right now it is December 19th and I've already gotten 5 offers for acceptance. I've gotten 4 full rides. The other school I don't know yet. I'm waiting for the package in the mail where they're going to tell me. But again, this is December and I already have almost half of the schools have responded to me and let me know whether I'm accepted or not. And so that gives me ample time to plan. I can figure out logistics. If I need to get a place closer to campus, I have time to search. I have time to save up. Timing, it matters. It gives you so much more opportunity. If you guys are applying, let's say early in the spring with a January or February application, you might not get your answers until June. I've even heard of some students who got a call like 2 weeks before the semester started. Someone had decided that they weren't going to attend and that student had been waitlisted. And now the school's like, hey, do you want to go? You have, 24 hours to let us know yes or no. Otherwise, we need to call the next candidate. I don't want to be scrambling if you call me in June and tell me that I'm accepted and school starts in August. Now, the wait list is a beast in and of itself, and so I will do an entirely separate video on the wait list. And I know that waiting for the next cycle to apply is not always an option. As I said in my last video, guys, I didn't get the LSAT score that I wanted. I know that I can do better. I have, since then, I've taken a few tests just to prove it to myself, and I've done much better. But I had to make a choice, and I chose to go ahead and apply to law school with my score as is right now so that I could get my applications in earlier in the cycle and I could start school fall of 2021. Was that the best option? Maybe. Maybe not. It might not be right for everybody. On average, they say that every additional point that you score on the LSAT can make a difference in your scholarship offer of somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000, guys. Every single point. Every single point. $5,000 to $10,000. Every single point. So don't be like me. If you're not scoring where you want to be, really strongly consider waiting till that next cycle. Study harder, get the LSAT score that you need, the highest that you possibly can. Maybe strengthen your resume, do some volunteer work. But when you come back that next year and you apply early on in the cycle, you are going to be a stronger candidate and you are going to look so much better on paper and you're going to have more acceptances, more scholarship money. And when you do go to law school, I hope you're going for free. Now this part might not apply to everyone, but another reason or another thing that I took into consideration when I made the choice to go ahead and apply to law school now with my score as is was the fact that I am a URM, which is just underrepresented minority. Admissions offices can sometimes be slightly more lenient towards us as a candidate. For those of you that don't know, the average LSAT score for a person of color, whether Black or Hispanic, is 142. And the average LSAT score for people who are Caucasian or Asian is 153. Also, males tend to score slightly higher than females. I could go into an entire tangent on why people of color tend to score lower, not just on the LSAT, but on the MCAT, on the SAT, on the ACTs, on everything. It's a failure of the system, honestly, and it's embarrassing that the country has done nothing to repair that disparity. But I digress. If you guys want to read more about the LSAC and how they did some research into the different scores of different people of color, I will go ahead and pop a link for 1 or 2 of those articles down below. But law schools know this information. They know that people of color and females tend to score slightly lower on these tests, and that's not because they are dumber. It's not because they don't know what they're doing. There are a million factors that go into that, and they're well aware. And so that's something that they do take into consideration when they're looking at an application. Now, if I try to get into Yale with a 155 LSAT score and a 3.4 GPA, the fact that I am Black and Hispanic, the fact that I am a female, that is not going to help at all, guys. The fact that I am a URM helps like this much. This much. Oh, I did the thing. Okay, ignore me. So to sum up my ramblings today, yes, it is very possible to apply later on in the cycle and still get accepted to a great school. It happens. All that it means is that your chances might be slightly slimmer and your scholarship offer might be slightly smaller. So is it harder when you apply a little bit later? Yeah, but it's not impossible. It's all about your priorities. Maybe you don't have any baggage. Maybe if they call you and they're like, hey, you got 2 months to figure it out and get here if you want to go to our school, maybe you can literally just pack up and go and there is nothing stopping you. Maybe you don't mind loans. Maybe you're okay with it. I myself I'm trying to go to law school for free, guys, like free. So no, I want to avoid as many loans as possible. But not everyone's in that boat. So if you're okay with loans, then maybe you're okay with not getting as much scholarship money. And so applying later in the cycle it's an option for you. If you know that you absolutely cannot wait another year to go to law school, then apply. But if you have the time and if you have the money and if you have the patience, don't be like me. Study longer, get a higher score, be a stronger candidate when you submit your application. Do what you can to get as much money as you can, guys. Like I said, don't pay for law school if you don't have to. I didn't realize how much money it really was, because when someone says, oh, you know, $60,000 a semester, okay, that's $180,000 in loans. What about interest? And that's just for tuition, depending on the school. But where are you living? Because you really can't work your first year of law school, so you're living off of loans. So you're paying for your rent, you're paying for your groceries, your gas, whatever else off of loans. It's not going to be $180,000 by the time that you graduate that you owe. It's going to be well over $200,000. And how much are you paying a month in a loan? Like $3,000, $6,000, like the higher end. So again, it's just, what are you comfortable with? So my next few videos are actually going to be, I think, kind of just in order, like maybe a part 1, 2, 3, and 4, because I don't think you guys want to sit here and listen to me for an hour. But I'm going to be talking about the process of actually applying to law school, what you need to do first, taking your LSAT, registering for it, requesting transcripts and letters of recommendation, all of that. Then we move on to choosing a law school, what plays into that. There's so much that I want to share with you guys. But the very first step is taking your LSAT, because that's going to be a huge deciding factor in where you're going to apply and when. And so that's what we're going to discuss in the very next video, is registering for and taking your LSAT Flex. Anyway, thank you guys again for joining me today. If there was anything that maybe I glazed over or that I didn't address, pop that in the comments below. If you guys completely disagree with me, please tell me. I actually had someone who I spoke to on Facebook. By the way, thank you guys, those of you who reached out to me on Facebook and on Instagram. I love it. We had a great conversation about her applying for law school, and I just asked her a few questions as far as, you know, what's your plan financially? Are you going to live off loans and get a place, or are you going to live maybe at home and save some money? I talked to her about scholarships and where she was thinking of applying. And there was a lot of things that she wasn't aware of when it came to applying for school. And I appreciate that you reached out. I'm not saying I am the law school guru and I know everything, because I don't. I'm starting this process just like you guys. But I love that conversation, and I love being able to help however I can. So keep it coming, guys. Reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, anything. And please don't forget to like this video and hit that bell icon to subscribe. I put out videos every single week, and I'm here to help. As always, stay focused, stay healthy, and stay blessed, guys.